So Michelle, are we all set? We think this is going to work fine?
I think so. I've got it recording and I can see on my screen, and I think we've confirmed other people can see. So
Okay.
start whenever you want, and then I can introduce Christina when you're ready.
Okay. So we're still just a couple of minutes early, and I do see that people are still joining. We're up to 40. So we'll wait until 7 promptly and start at 7.
What did you think was the milkweed on that middle one?
No, the milkweed, I mean, I'm looking at the left-hand one.
Oh, that's a post oak, Quercus stellata.
Oh, really? Okay. It's so close up.
Yeah, it almost looks like it's those Oties.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
kind of thinking.
I thought it was so cool, but I'm not a camera expert either. I was really trying to show how those little leaflets coming out, that it made a star. And I was like, why isn't this the state tree? It makes a 5-star with this leaf formation. But
Christina,
they didn't ask.
she has a really nice post oak at her house too.
Yeah.
So while we're waiting a couple of minutes, would anyone who doesn't mind type in the chat how you heard about the presentation and general area of where you're from?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
My name is Margaret Johnson, and a friend of mine, Corinne, I don't know if she's on yet or not, but she knows that I'm very much interested in all sorts of plants, and especially herbs. I'm an avid gardener for 40 years, and this is something I'm always very interested in learning more about. So thank you for including me.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Water.
So I have 7. Let's go ahead and begin. And before we get to our presentation, on behalf of the Fort Worth Native Prairie Association of Texas chapter, we'd like to welcome you. And we're glad you joined us. We're all really excited about this presentation. I'd like to remind you, please, to mute yourself and have your video turned off during the presentation. If you have questions, please enter them in the chat, and we'll cover them at the end. And I think that's all I need to say. I'd like to ask Michelle to please introduce our speaker for tonight.
You're muted.
I'm Michelle Biaronca, and I am a board member of the Fort Worth chapter of the Native Prairies Association of Texas, as well as the state organization. And Christina and I work together for the City of Fort Worth Park and Recreation Department. Christina and I started our jobs pretty much about the same time as park planners for the Parks Department. And we get to do all kinds of stuff, some of it not so fun, some of it really interesting and fun. But Christina, we bonded right away on the first day that we met, because we both are native plant enthusiasts and know quite a bit about native plants. Christina was working in Austin for a consulting firm as a landscape architect. And with that, she would take her knowledge of native plants and herbal remedies, and she would go to sites and look at the native plants, and then she could theme some of the projects. So some of the projects that she worked on as a landscape architect, she was able to theme how the sites were built out using her knowledge of native plants. And so she moved up to Fort Worth with a job with the Parks Department, and she's using that knowledge for our parks. And so I think it's really great to have myself and Christina working for the Parks Department, because we have that eye towards the native species, and that can help inform us and help guide on policies. So with that, I introduce Christina Moon, landscape architect, park planner, and native plant specialist and herbalist.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, so I'm those things. I'm also a certified arborist. So I think you can just call me a plant nerd. All right, so the goals of this presentation is, in everything I do, I want to encourage people to just enjoy where they're at, the place where they're at, and to be a better land steward tomorrow than they are today. And this quote, I've always loved this quote. Baba Diem was a forester. In the end, we will conserve only what we love. We will love only what we understand. And we will only understand what we are taught. So anytime any native plant people can open your mouth and speak, do it. So and my goal for this presentation is to just inspire you to learn more about herbalism. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about a lot of things. All right, so in this presentation, I'm going to give you a very quick overview of herbal traditions, give you some resources, give you some ideas, things to try to incorporate herbs into your daily life. We're going to talk about herbal properties, and then we're going to go through some native medicinal plants. And then I'm not on video because I was scared I'd lose my connection, but I made videos of some demos of making a glycerite and then pressing a tincture. All right, so many things to learn about herbalism. And the first thing is there's always more to learn about plants. You can learn, I mean, y'all know, you can learn plant biology, ecology, and then in herbalism, some people call it more woo-woo. When you start talking about plant essence, flower essence, and energy. And you can learn more about yourself, just the human body. So if you want to take a tea because you feel like you have a cold, or your hands are cold and you want to improve your circulation, or whatever the issue is, you need to have a fairly good understanding of the human body. So you could learn a lot more about the human body as part of your herbal training. Obviously, we're Western herbalism here in the States, and that's based on a long, long tradition. So Hippocrates, 400 BC, he was a Greek physician, and his mantra was, let food be thy medicine, right? So we don't necessarily have to take medicines. We should just be intaking what our body needs all the time. Then we'll fast forward to Nicholas Culpeper, early 1600s, botanist, herbalist, physician. And the very interesting thing about him is he was also an astrologist. So he looked at, and there's plenty of herbal traditions that look at a plant based on an astrological symbol. So he also then would create medicines or give remedies to people based on lunar cycles and what are their sign. And that's all very fascinating to me, but I know almost nothing about it. But that's just another aspect of herbalism. Then we get to Samuel. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Could you speak up just a little bit more?
Okay. Here, I'll try
Yeah,
to put
thank
my
you.
face.
I'm having hard hearing too.
Okay. Is this better? Any better?
Keep going.
I think so.
Am I gone?
No, keep talking so we can see if it's getting
Okay.
better.
Okay. So Samuel Thompson, he was a self-taught herbalist, if you've ever heard of Thompsonian medicine, that's really when American Medical Society started to come in to its own. And herbalists, there was starting to be this back and forth about only people with a medical degree and research could practice medicine. So herbalists today will not tell you, oh, you have migraines, you can cure that with something. They can only say, you can't, make any medical claims. So you can say, well, this herb is a great ally for migraines or whatever your issue is. Right. Other herbal traditions are Ayurveda, which translates into knowledge of life. I'm just starting to learn more about Ayurveda. And it focuses on these three energies, Vata, Pitta, Kapha. If you want to learn more about this, I highly recommend lifespa.com, I think it is, just because he'll take this ancient wisdom and pair it with research, Western scientific research that's done and kind of prove up that the ancients really knew what they were talking about. And then Chinese medicine, I know zero about, but again, it's been around for thousands of years. Obviously, they know what they're doing. It works, or else, right, they wouldn't keep doing it. And that's based on 5 elements. And then also here, we have the Native American healing traditions. All right, so here's this picture on the right is just some of my personal resources. So you can, for more information, again, you could look at societies, the American Botanical Council, that's based in Austin. Mark Blumenthal, he's a well-known herbalist. You can check them out. They do a monthly publication and talk about a lot of research that's going on. Usually they pick 1 or 2 plants and give you research that's done throughout the ages and current, just full of information there. If you wanted to become a registered herbalist, I'm not interested. That's a lot of school and paperwork. I just like playing with the plants, but you would go through the American Herbalist Guild. Renowned herbalist. So I put in there, find a precedent. So my degree is in architecture and landscape architecture. And one of the things that I was told was find a precedent, find an architect that you really love their work or you love their philosophy, and see how they responded to different situations and different challenges. And so I would say that the same about herbalists. Find somebody that is studying the same thing that you're interested in or has a philosophy similar to yours. So I have a list here of some kind of current well-known herbalists. So Rosemary Gladstar, she's kind of in the middle of that picture, the Herbal Recipes book. She's done many, many books. She's been around since the 60s and really started getting herb schools going. And I think she also has an herbal conference. I don't know if it's annual, but she's having conferences. She's very well known. Margie Flint, that blue book kind of towards the top. I find her fascinating. So while all herbalists would do some body reading, if they were a practitioner, even if you're just trying to help your friend, you would, maybe look, your friend has bags under their eyes, they should maybe be drinking some oat straw tea or different, you can just look at a person's physical self and make some quick assessments. But Margie Flint, that book, The Practicing Herbalist, is just amazing. It'll be crow's feet indicate this. A droopy eyelid indicates that. Amazing. Dr. Low Dog, she started out, she's a Native American. She started out as an herbalist and then became a medical doctor. And that's really awesome because she can talk to both sides, both traditions. Dr. James Green, I don't have anything with Dr. Low Dogs, but she has I'm trying to remember what the name of her she has an online school. I'm looking to see. I didn't write. She has an online school. You can just look up Dr. Low Dog and tons of information. James Green, he focuses on men's health. That book down on the far right corner. And then here's my precedent, the one I love. I think my husband gets sick of hearing about. Well, Juliet says. So Juliet de Barclay Levy. What speaks to me about her in the 1930s, as a woman, this is pretty amazing, was studying to be a veterinarian. And I don't know if she ever graduated, but she became very disenchanted with how much the medical community accepted a certain amount of disease. And so she learned from traditional healers around the world. And she, right, and a lot of that information, Mexico, the Gypsies, Greek, don't write it down. It's just traditional medicine. And so she has several books, that little yellow book at the top right. She wrote down a lot of remedies and her experiences. I have tons of experience just using herbal remedies on my dog. And personally, the reason I like sharing those experiences with people, whereas if I give Michelle, which I've done before, some teas, she could maybe have a placebo effect, right? I told you it's going to happen but with dogs or animals, it's purely physiological, which to me points that yes, herbal remedies do work. All right, so if you wanted more information and see what kind of specialties there are, any of those people could probably get you going in a million different directions. There's current teachers with online classes. Nicole Telk, that was who I studied with in Austin at Wildflower Herbal School of Medicine. I don't remember the whole long. We'll talk next about the Firesider lawsuit. Dr. Patrick Jones his school is the Homegrown Herbalist. Again, I'm very interested in him because he's a trained and practicing veterinarian. He also had 11 kids, I think. A lot of them, they weren't all his, he adopted a lot of kids. But the thing, too, about him is, right, he has a lot of practical experiences with bumps and bruises and earaches and all kinds of things. Michael Moore, he died several years ago. He was my teacher's teacher. His school is called Southwest School of Botanical Medicine. And while he no longer teaches, his wife has left up his website. And I will tell you, it's not a fancy website, but if you want to know something about a specific herb, you'll find in there, we call that a monograph, when you write a big long paper about all the things you've learned about that herb. You'll get more information than you can handle. So I don't know the website, but just if you Googled Southwest School of Botanical Medicine or Michael Moore Herbalist, you'll find that. Paul Bergner, he is, the thing I love about him is he talks a lot about pairings. So while you could take, for an example, Scutellaria skullcap is well known as a sleep ally. But just a warning, if you try some skullcap tincture, some people it really boosts your energy. So just if you want to play around with Scutellaria, maybe do it on a night that it's okay if you end up staying awake. But Paul Bergner and his pairings, so he would tell you, hey, if you think Scutellaria works good, add some passiflora with that, some passion flower, and it's not twice as good, it's 10 times better. So pairings, and his school is Acorn, I think it's Acorn School of Herbal Medicine. Some great books. This one is fairly new, The Wild Remedies at the top. Rosalie De La Forta and Emily Hahn. Rosalie has a lot of things going on right now. I haven't followed her that much, but I see her name pop up everywhere, and she's on podcasts. And the thing I love about that book right there that would be a great jumping off book for anybody who wants to get more into herbalism, because it starts out even just talking about how do I get to know that herb or herbs better. Talks about how you might wildcraft or grow your own, and then they dedicate, I think they have maybe 10 plants in that book, but each chapter is a specific plant, and they give recipes. For instance, chickweed pesto, and tinctures and medicinal things and teas. So I highly recommend that book. It's really new, so you might not, it might not be available at the library. Braiding Sweetgrass, I recommend that for anyone, because it really encourages people to think about our impact on the plant communities and plant life. And Robin Wall Kimmerer talks a lot about the honorable harvest. She's a Native American and also a professor. I forget what her specialty is, but she has, her writing style is very beautiful and engaging. But braiding sweetgrass, that's what Native Americans, they would burn sweetgrass as a during celebrations to honor the earth and to be thankful for the bounty, all the bounties they received. So, and then the rest on my table there, on the bottom left, there's plenty of festivals and conferences everybody does online these days. So you might even just look up herbal conferences. Moonflower was in Austin. My teacher ran that one. I don't know if it's going to continue to happen. Well, who knows? At the bottom, though, that catalog. So Mountain Rose Herbs, if you want to just start trying some different herbs, you should definitely check them out, because they sell bulk herbs. They sell supplies like bottles and droppers, clays for if you're making a poultice or other remedies. Check out their website for sure, though. They have a podcast, but they have on their recipes, and they have more information about different herbs. And the website's really beautiful. All right, so fire cider. Fire cider, so this was one I made a couple years ago.
Could you
Is a
speak up,
traditional
please?
You what?
A little bit louder, please. It's hard to hear you.
I don't know if I can get any louder. I'll try.
Okay.
Fire cider is a traditional remedy. It's been around, we don't know how long. Rosemary Gladstar has it in her books, dating from the late 60s, 70s. In the early 2000s, there was a company that started and trademarked fire cider. Some herbalists spoke up and said, hey, you can't trademark a traditional remedy. In the end, the trademark, they lost that lawsuit, which is good, because otherwise, unless you wanted to risk being sued, you wouldn't be able to make fire cider for your family, which would be a shame. So this picture here shows one I made. It's everything that's hot and spicy. So you make this in the fall, early winter, to help against, just to boost your immune system, before cold season hits. So it's everything hot. It'll heat up the body, get your blood circulating, get your immune system, kind of on high alert. And just when you heat up your body, you naturally can kill some bacteria. So in this is just a jar full of horse herb, ginger, onion, oregano, chili piquin, those little red, lemon. You can put like I said, anything hot and spicy. Fill the mason jar, then cover all your ingredients with apple cider vinegar. Let it sit for traditionally 4 to 6 weeks, and then you would just strain off your liquid and drink the vinegar, and there you go. You've got your winter remedy. I will tell you the fun thing we did when we made this in class is we did it on a full moon, and then we went and buried the jar in the earth, and then came back to the beginning of the next lunar cycle, and then strained our tincture there and our vinegar and drank it up. All right, so try to start incorporating some herbs into your daily life. So this is my pantry. You can see all my herbs there. I've got some smudge sticks, tinctures. So at the darkest place I can find in my pantry is where I put my tinctures that are brewing. So ways that you can start incorporating herbs into your daily life. You know, when you're out in nature, just use your eyes and see what's out there. Soon we'll be having a lot of goldenrod. That I really like goldenrod. It's a good allergen, an ally for people with allergies. I like to just put it in some vinegar, let it sit for even just a couple days, a couple weeks, take the plant material out, and I just use the vinegar on my salad. But when you're out, so look, if you come on a field of goldenrod, see what's buzzing around it. Is it growing in the shade? Is it growing in the sun? So use all your senses. What do you see? And then smell it. A lot of times, even just the smell, for sure the taste, can tell us what it is that plant might be good for. But smell it, touch it. Be careful, poison ivy. I'm looking at a rash I have on my arm right now. And taste it, but let me just give you a warning. No, don't taste it unless you know what you're looking at. If you go to the grocery store, you'll see tinctures. Most grocery stores these days have a bunch of tinctures, and you'll see astragalus. However, our native astragalus is highly toxic. So really know your genus and species before you start tasting some stuff. And then I'll give a shout out to using your ears. So I don't know about y'all, but when I'm out, I love listening to just hear what the plants are trying to, I feel like they call us sometimes. So cottonwood and gamma grass. I know when I'm walking in the pasture, sometimes I'll hear something behind me and I'll turn around and went, oh, it's just you, gamma grass. Okay. And then cottonwoods, I love cottonwoods. It's like a babbling brook, right? But there doesn't have to be any water there. So cottonwoods, I feel like a lot of times the plants are calling to us and want us to just take notice. And then, so my other suggestion is just maybe pick 3 to 5 herbs at first. Just observe what's going on, maybe grow it, watch the life cycle, make teas, buy tinctures. And then if you want to get into more of what we call woo-woo, you could do a flower essence where you fill a tub with water, and then people take baths with rose petals all the time. That is a flower essence. That's a bath, a flower essence bath. And just really surround yourself with the plant. All these are great ways to start just trying and learning more about some specific herbs and get to know them really well. My suggestions for ones to try would be, because they're super easy and they grow and they're available, is rosemary, aloe, yarrow. Yarrow is one of my favorite. It's called the warrior plant. Achillea, what's the last name? I don't know. Achilles, though, is what it's named after. He was a great warrior until he wasn't. But Romans carried this plant with them into war because it has so many properties and healing attributes to it. So I would suggest trying rosemary, aloe, yarrow, lemon balm, and then grapes. I mean, just grapes are fun, plus you can eat them. And I want to just mention, while we're talking about grapes, another way to look at plants is we call it a doctrine of signatures. So if you think about a bunch of grapes, it's a bunch of lumps all together. Well, one thing that we use grape leaves for are things like polyps, and polyps can be a bunch of clusters, almost like grapes. So doctrine of signatures is just also interesting. A lot of times when you see a plant, you might just try to guess looking at it, what might this be good for based on what it reminds me of in the body. So yarrow is also helpful with lung issues. And you can think about all those little capillaries when you look at a yarrow leaf. Mullein has a lot of remedies with the spine, and that big long stalk kind of looks like a spine. All right, properties, taste, actions, energetics. These are almost the same. So if I talk about the properties or actions of an herb, it's telling you what it's helpful for. So a good example is an astringent. Astringents like rosemary tighten and tone. That's its action, is it's astringent. And in this case, it's also a taste. You can taste something, and if you've ever tried rosemary tea, it'll dry your mouth out, and you can just tell that it's astringent. Energetics is more, you might think of energetics more people who use crystals. They're really drawing on the energy of that plant, but you can also, it's not just crystals, you can associate it with plants. I wanted to say too, that picture on the bottom, let's don't negate that sometimes there's healing just being in a place. So I know I took that photo there just west of Houston at the Atwater's Prairie Chicken Refuge. It was a very stressful time in my life. I was on my way to a meeting, but I made sure I left some time, an hour, and I kind of ran through real quick that coastal prairie, and it was so worth it and very healing. All right, here's I think what most people are interested in, just to learn a little bit more about what we can use these native plants for. So allergy allies, some great ones: ragweed, goldenrod. And with the ragweed one, let me just say, if you are super allergic to a plant, or you just question mark of, I don't think I should be around that plant, then don't. Check with your doctor. They can give you all the medical information you need, and just keep you safe. But if you know your body and you know it's probably okay for you to try ragweed, you might give it a try just to see. Ragweed, goldenrod, great allergy allies. I'm going to make a glycerite with ragweed. And you'll see that video here. Digestive allies. So this is kind of these have three different properties, actions. Purslane and Turk's Cap are what we call mucilaginous. It moistens tissues. If you take Turk's Cap, cut the leaves, you can eat the flowers. They actually have a really good flavor. And so you can cut up the leaves and put them in water, and after a couple of hours, you'll see this kind of slimy stuff on top. In our American diet, we don't get very much. We eat a lot of drying things, and so things that are mucilaginous are really great digestive allies. I think nature a lot of times is screaming at us, try me. Purslane's in the cracks of the urban areas. I think it's saying, try me, I can help. Juniper, this one is very astringent, but the berries, or the fleshy cones, actually, of the juniper are great for helping digest meat. Yopon holly, inflammatory, is our only native caffeine, which also is a great ally. A hormonal ally for all us ladies out there I feel good even just when I'm around evening primrose. But there's plenty, there's dried herbs you can get. Plenty of people make little capsules you can get. Highly recommend. If ever I start to kind of break out, my face starts getting a little broken out, I can take evening primrose for a day and a half and my face is clear. So highly recommend it. Over there on the right, that was a passiflora that I had to leave at our last house. I loved it. It was a beautiful one. I think that's a finnis, passiflora finnis. All right, immune and blood allies, coneflower, echinacea. I love echinacea, but let me just say, herbalists disagree on if it's okay to use this all the time. Some herbalists will say, yeah, you can use it every day. Myself, plenty of others say, no, you know what? It's such a strong immuno response. It really boosts your immune system's response that you should really only use echinacea if you've had a cold that's hanging on for a long time, or if you know you're about to go see grandkids, or or you're going to the dentist. You might take echinacea to boost your immune system, just that little extra bump. Chili pecan, if that's our only native capsicum, any of the capsicums are great to improve your circulation because it, again, heats up your body, which also then helps deter bacteria and other things entering your body. Prickly pear is used a lot with diabetes. Sleep allies, I talked about this with the pairings with the passiflora and the scutellaria. And then spiritual and grounding allies. So all of these herbs aren't, it's not that you only use passion flower to sleep. So I just use these as the general what I use them for, but they are multifaceted. And roses, I think, fulfill maybe almost all of these allies, but I think generally it's used for spiritual, as a spiritual ally. Vervain, Verbena hallei, is used a lot for people who are going through sexual trauma. Bee balm is also very grounding, and you can use it as an oregano substitute. But bee balm, if you have a tea with it, if you have some in your yard, you might go bring some in and make a pot of tea. It is very downward moving. It moves the energy in your body down, and it could make you sleepy, but it's more just grounding, like bringing you back into yourself. I don't know about you, but I've had plenty of times when I felt like, wow, I'm just disconnected from my own self, and that's what I mean by grounding. Wound allies, again, yarrow, the warrior plant, I love it. The interesting thing about yarrow, it's used as a styptic, but it can also increase blood flow. It's amazing. It kind of knows what your body needs. And then oak, cottonwood, elm, willow, mostly use the bark, but let me say something about oak. I want everybody to kind of think, if you're think about being in a prairie and you come up on a single cedar elm, like what are you thinking besides, oh, thank God for some shade? But like how do you feel versus if you're walked up to a single oak? For me, that's just the majesty of an oak. It's very majestic. A lot of herbalists, really, it's mystical, almost, oaks are. And so some herbalists will not use it at all. Personally, I use it as a wound ally and never fails me. But I don't use it for everything. And I also practice the honorable harvest. So if I'm wanting oak, I don't just go out there and cut it. I kind of sit and evaluate the situation. Is it okay for me to take this piece of oak for my own purposes? And then the other thing I would say, again, nature often is screaming at us, I can help. There's been times when I really wanted to use an oak pea for wounds, and I didn't feel like I should be cutting on that oak right then. Michelle mentioned my beautiful post oak out there, and that one is the giving tree to me. And I've gone before, and then I've walked back around and come by it again, and I've found on multiple occasions a tiny little branch that's fallen that I can use leaves and twigs. So, but just another thing with herbalism to think about if you want to get more into the woo-woo or more honorable harvest and just being respectful and looking at plants as communities or other beings. I think I'm going to skip real fast on this so we can go to the videos. We can come back if you want. But other medicinal plants, again, things people call weeds, we probably should be eating a lot more. All of those on the left come out oftentimes, most of them in the spring, which is when our bodies are really wanting to detox. And these are all great detoxifiers, liver cleansers, kidney and gallbladder allies. And then a lot of your culinary herbs are also great digestive allies. All right, so I'm going to play a video here of me making my sinus relief. It's a glycerite. It really tastes awful. So a lot of times if there's something and you know it tastes bad, sometimes you just make a tincture, and because you can just take a couple drops and you're done. But with the glycerite, it's a little bit sweet, so it kind of hides it a little bit. So that's my ambrosia right there, standing tall and beautiful towards the bottom on the left. You've got a nightshade, and in the back on the right, inside my caged garden there, that's a mullein. The Doctor and the Signatures idea with the flower stalk coming out that looks like a spine. Let me get to the video. Come on. Welcome to my kitchen. I'm fresh from the garden. I'm going to show today a sinus remedy that's a glycerite. So I'm going to talk about glycerites real quick. Different plants are, the constituents are pulled out better through different media. Some are pulled out better through the glycerite. Some are better. In here, I just use a vegetable glycerite. From alcohol, and some even respond differently to different alcohols, brandy versus vodka. It's kind of fun to experiment and just see. And it's also a flavor thing.
Michelle, it's really scratchy to hear you. It's really hard to hear you.
So for this one in particular, not only the plants that I'm using respond well to this, but the flavor of this it's strong. So I try to make it a little more palatable by putting it in a glycerite. So what we have, I'm probably one of the few people in Texas who was so excited when this little plant, see if I can bring it up there, showed up in my garden. Ambrosia, ragweed. Just showed up this year. I didn't have any on my property. So our
Christina, I think people are having trouble hearing the video.
So when you share the screen, the video clip can be optimized for sound. Did that box get checked?
Where is that box?
When you pull up the share screen, there's a box on the bottom left corner.
Trying to get there.
I think you may have to get out of that and go back to just the share screen. It's on the very first share screen.
Share computers.
If you're currently sharing, you may have to unshare first.
Yeah, I think
Get that
so.
share screen to come up.
Avoid. Okay. All right, we'll try it again.
Welcome to my kitchen. I'm fresh from the garden.
Much better.
I'm going to show today a sinus remedy that's a glycerite. So I'm going to talk about glycerites real quick. Different plants are, the constituents are pulled out better through different media. Some are pulled out better through a glycerite. Some are better, and here I just use a vegetable glycerite, from alcohol, and some even respond differently to different alcohols, brandy versus vodka. It's kind of fun to experiment and just see, and it's also a flavor thing. And another media would just be water. That's what teas are. They're pulling out constituents. So for this one in particular, not only the plants that I'm using respond, the flavor of this it's strong. So I try to make it a little more palatable by putting it in a glycerite. So what we have, I'm probably one of the few people in Texas who was so excited when this little plant, see if I can bring it up there, showed up in my garden. Ambrosia, ragweed. Just showed up this year. I didn't have any on my property. So our glycerite is going to have ambrosia, yarrow, achillea, and rosemary. I did not have any, well, I have some fresh rosemary, but my plant is small. So I've got some dried rosemary here. Let me talk about when you should harvest certain plants. So right now on this ambrosia, I pulled roots and all. So you can use the whole plant. You know, I could wash the roots off and use the stems and the leaves. It's your preference. Something like this that's weedy, I would say, you always want to use what has the most energy at the time. And right, ragweed is growing like crazy right now, so the energy is in the leaves. And since there's so much, this is what I started to say. Things that are weedy like this, and you don't mind if you know, some plants I might feel bad if I only use the leaves and left all the rest of this unused. But ragweed, let's just use the leaves. Same as yarrow, you can see it's had been flowering. Here, I'll show my tabletop here in a second. The energy's not really going towards the flowers anymore. But we're going to go ahead and use the flowers and definitely use the leaves. I like using the stalks. So there's that. And I used, again, we can use whole plants, so I came in with some of the root as well. So what we're going to do first to get ready for this is we're going to take the leaves that are browned or that maybe have little visitors on them, some bugs or maybe some what do you call this, what bugs lay? Little eggs. We're going to get rid of that stuff. Since this is for a medicinal use, right, we're trying to help our body and have allies to our body. We don't want to give it, we want to give it the best of the best. All right, so I've kind of prepped the plants. So here we go. So I'm going to measure out, waiting for it, there it is, the scissors. So here, we're just going to take the leaves. Make sure you can see all this. And I'm just going to cut it. You know, some people just use the whole leaf and not cut it. My thought is that, you know, you really want more surface area for that glycerite to come in contact with. So I cut them, you know, some people cut it really small, some bigger. This is called macerating. So we're just going to macerate these leaves. Starting to really smell strong. My nose is running already. And I'm getting that cool, the staining on my fingers from the sap from the plant. Another thing to talk about, so I'm mixing fresh and dried plant material here. That's not really a big deal. Well, it would depend on what tincture you do. There might be tinctures where you really want to do all dry, all fresh, but it just happens to be what I have available, so that's what we're using. I'm gonna get some stems because I need to get this weight. Oops, there's a little visitor. We won't cut him up. So it takes a lot of plant material sometimes. And while I'm thinking about that, let's just talk about use of plant material. I like essential oils. I enjoy using essential oils at times, but I just want to throw it out there that maybe there's something better sometimes than an essential oil, just because it takes a lot of plant material to make 1 ounce of essential oil. Okay, there we go. Now we got what we need there. So please, in my mind, please use essential oils as needed. And just remember, I'm trying to remember how many pounds of roses it takes to get 1 ounce. Something like 60 pounds of roses. Okay. I digress. So I'm going to kind of pack it in here. And then now I need to do my yarrow. So here, let's see, we have another visitor. So I would like to, even though the flowers probably don't have all the energy that you would prefer, the plant is still sending some energy up there to make the seeds. So we're just going to cut this up, and I'm going to cut the leaves. There we go. Now this smells very good. The ragweed is a little strong, but the yarrow I love. It makes a wonderful tea. I use yarrow tea quite a bit on my dogs because they're always getting scratches, or I'm gonna put some other root in there too. Bug bites, so yarrow draws out. It does a lot of things, actually. It's quite phenomenal. And so the name Achillea, from Achilles heel. Okay, that's all I needed, yarrow. The warrior plant, the Romans carried this off into war with them because it is a magic plant. It can stop blood flow. It can encourage blood flow. And now I have some extra here for making tea later, which I almost always need. And it tastes okay. But yarrow, to me, we'll talk more about it. Great. Okay, so here's all my herbs ready to go. And then I'll probably we just want to cover this. Make sure this gets covered in the glycerite. So then we can mix it up. what I'm trying to do is just make sure the glycerite gets through all the plant material there. And then we always want to make sure all of the plant material is covered in our media. So I didn't realize how low I was on glycerite, so I might actually need to get some more before this is 100% finished. Well, we might make it. So you don't want to leave parts of the plant material sticking out. That's where your mold can happen. Even though these are all highly antimicrobial, antibacterial, they're going to resist it quite well. So I think I'm pretty well covered there. And where's there it is, my jar topper. So this just helps press down the plant material so we're not getting oxygen on, the plants aren't coming up on top, and it'll bubble and gurgle. And so then, here's my lid. So we're done. Typically, you let this sit a moon cycle, depending on, your preference, how you're practicing. Some people might only harvest plants at certain times of the moon cycle or certain times of year. Definitely, you should always harvest when the plant is at its most, at its strongest, right? Like ragweed right now. Yarrow would have probably been better with the look of these flowers maybe 3-4 weeks ago, but it'll still be, it's the warrior plant. I love it. It'll be fine. But anyway, so you could probably actually just leave this a couple days, but traditionally you leave it for at least 4 weeks. So here's my label. I already made my label, and it's got today's date. I need to put on here the amounts, but it's got ambrosia, achillea, rosemary. This is where I got it from my garden and from Sacred Green Herb in Dripping Springs. So I need to add on there my quantities, and I need to add that it's a glycerite. But then just put your label on and check back in a month. I will show you, this is my one from last year. I will show you, I will take a taste and you will see my reaction. Maybe it won't be too bad, but it's strong. Whew, it's strong. But anyway, you can see that's the color it is. A nice dark brown, a little bit of green. Whew, tip to it. So there you go. There's your glycerite. Now I'm going to have to go blow my nose.
So can you tell us what glycerite is? Like how it's acting as a carrier for the herb?
It's just from people doing it for so long. There's references out there that'll tell you, like valerian, it's not a native, but it's one I use quite often. Valerian is drawn out best with vodka, or there's references out there that'll let you know what pulls out the constituents the best. And water really is great, right? We make tons of teas, and that's what it's doing, is pulling out the constituents. And then I had another one where I was pressing. So say at the end of, once that sinus remedy is done, then I would be doing this where I'm going to show you how to press the tincture. And on this one, actually, I made it into a syrup.
Hello, welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to press a t-shirt to make syrup. So I'm going to adjust the camera so you can see what I'm doing here. All right, so one of the first things I want to show is the label. You should always label your tinctures, your herbal remedies. And so this is peach, the leaves and twigs. I reuse the same jar, or I reuse the same label. Where I got it from my front yard, it's made in brandy. And this year I added some mimosa flowers that I got, and a whole peach. And you can make a syrup almost out of any tincture or tea or whatever you like by adding honey or glyceride. So if you have something that tastes nasty, which this does not, but if you had something that tasted yuck and you wouldn't want to drink it, then one thing you can do is make a syrup out of it. So I'm going to open this up. So I've got a bowl, a strainer, and I put a little bit of cheesecloth just to make sure that everything gets pressed out really well. And I've got a glass topper in here to help hold down there it goes. There's my jar topper. I think it smells really fabulous with that brandy. So you can see, here comes all our stuff. All right, so then we're just gonna press all the liquid out so we can get all the good stuff. So I press it a little, I don't want to ruin my strainer, so I press, and then the cheesecloth, I can pick it up and give it a really good ring. So there's also fancy gadgets you can buy that, you know, herbal presses, and I wouldn't mind having one. I just haven't made the effort to go buy one. So I still do it this way. You can squeeze for a long time. Let's see, make sure I got everything out of there. All right, so now you can see that we're left with just this clear liquid. Well, clear. All the constituents are in there, everything we need to make a wonderful, I call this the summertime blues syrup, just because sometimes, although this year we haven't had it so hot, but at the end of the summer you're so just drained and wiped out, and this is just a nice little pick-me-up. You can have a couple teaspoons. Okay, so if we just had this right here as a tincture, but to make a syrup, like I said, we can add the glycerite, just any old, I use vegetable glycerite or honey. And so I highly recommend getting honey that's local. This is a local beekeeper. Shout out to Rancho Incognito. Fabulous honey. So for this one, it was 6 ounces of brandy. I'm going to put 1 ounce of honey. This is an 8-ounce jar, so I'm just going to pretty much eyeball 1 ounce. Let's see what we got. That's probably a little more, but good enough. About honey, this honey is its own magic food. It's highly nutritive. It will, I don't know, it kind of just cures your soul, your brain, you know, just gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling. But also, one of its greatest properties is that it's antibacterial. So it is great for rashes and burns, something that you want to keep bacteria out of. And I think everybody knows, but I will say, just for the record, be sure no children, you know, babies under 1 year old should not be having honey. All right, so we're mixed here. I can show you this too, just what we we had in here. So we had, I cut up the peach. These are the peach leaves, a little bit of twig. I'm not seeing the mimosa flower mushed down to nothing. There was the mimosa flower. So now we've got our tincture here, or I mean our syrup. So here's our syrup. And again, instead of honey, we could do glycerine. Delicious. So then I just store this in a cool, dark place in my pantry. And then I like just using masking tape because I know what I have here. And then we put the lid on and we're ready to go for the end of the summertime. I wanted to show you one other quick tidbit. This is for in the fall. I was going through my pantry and didn't realize I had this. So this is honey fermented garlic. Garlic it's not a cure-all for everything, and of course we can't say it cures anything, but garlic, antimicrobial, it's great for helping balance cholesterol, it improves your blood flow, all kinds of great things. So it helps kind of boost your immunity because it is increasing your blood flow. It's letting your body know that, hey, let's get things moving. So in the fall, I like to have this, right? Let me back up 1 second. So garlic loses its medicinal value once it gets to be a certain temperature. And so it's best to have it raw if you want it for medicinal purposes. So like I said, I just do this, you just peel all your garlic, shove them in a jar, fill it with honey, and then it's palatable.
All right. Sorry we went over.
Do you have any more slides in your presentation?
Nope. That right there was the tea I made with my leftover yarrow. And I've been using it on my poison ivy.
I think we had a couple of questions in the chat, but I wanted you to speak about when you cut your finger. I don't know, that was maybe a month ago, and tell everyone what you did to heal that up.
Yeah, so I was working on the goat barn out there, and I didn't have my gloves on. Lesson learned. I probably learned that lesson 20 times now. And blood everywhere. I looked really cool because I had blood on my jeans and my work shirt. Thought I looked like I was really tough. But again, yarrow, I just went to my garden, chewed up some yarrow, put it on top of that one. Another great one that probably everybody has in their yard is plantain. That's another one that you can just make a quick spit poultice, chew on that and put it over your wound, a cut. It'll help. The yarrow is a styptic, so it stops the blood, and that's why I use that versus plantain. But a lot of times I'll even do yarrow and then put a whole plantain leaf, kind of chew it a little bit and use it as my Band-Aid. All those things though, the blood stopped before I even got into the house with the yarrow. And I think that I can't even see, I had a giant cut on each hand. And on my left hand, I don't even know where it was anymore. My right, it was a deep cut, so it's still healing a little bit. But yeah, I love having those things that are just available right there.
And then on the yarrow that you're growing, is that just wild yarrow and you somehow collected seed and corralled it into your pen, or did you buy some horticultural yarrow?
So I did buy that, but it is supposed to be native. In Austin, there's plenty of places you can buy native plants, and that's where I got that one. On that picture, though, I did want to talk about a couple of those other plants. Way in the back is rue, native or Mexicans a lot. Central Americans use that. It's used for smudge sticks, which is spiritual healing, cleansing. But one of the remedies they use is they will just take yarrow and hit somebody in the head with it to help cure a headache. I've never tried that, don't know, but that's an interesting one. It's also very good for my chickens. In that picture too is kind of the yellow flower is dill. I'm not sure what medicinal value it has, but I like the flavor. But at the bottom right, that little kind of white flower and the big broad leaf, that is lemon balm, which is one of the things I mentioned I think everybody should try. It makes a wonderful tasting tea just in and of itself. But this is a plant, it's Melissa officinalis. Any plant that you see the genus and the species is officinalis, that was what Romans used in their official, their big gardens, their herbal gardens. But Melissa there is known to be very uplifting. So if you're having a day when you're like, here we go again, or if you just need to pick me up, and you might have seen my notes there, if there's any Harry Potter fans and he takes the liquid luck and then just suddenly he's smiling and everything's going great and blah, 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 that's what Melissa is. So I highly recommend trying that herb. And plus, I think it just makes a wonderful tasting tea.
So we had more than one question about glycerite. What is it? And the relationship between glycerite and glycerin. So could you tell us a little about that?
I don't really remember now. I've used it so much, I just used it. I know you can get that. I use a vegetable glycerite. I know you can get ones that aren't vegetable, but honestly, I can't tell you what it is now. It's one of those, I use it so much, I don't even remember
Is
what
it
the basis is.
at all? Is it oily at all, or it's more like water based?
It's real thick. It's real thick. So it might be part like a glycerin. I mean, it is a glycerin. That's a good question. I can't answer that.
No, when I looked it up as we were speaking, the information looked like you use glycerin and add the appropriate herbs to get the glycerite.
Oh, maybe that's it. Thank you for correcting me. I think you're correct in that it's a glycerin and then it makes a glycerite. You're right.
Yeah, so
Like taking water and adding herbs and you have tea. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, it's like a carrier, some way to carry
Yeah.
the chemical composition that you're getting.
And so we had another question also about how long do you have to, does it take to ferment garlic?
That's a good question because I just do it kind of in mid to late summer, so I have it in the fall. But that's a very good question. How long? I would say a minimum is 4 weeks. And you saw how dark the honey got. Like that started out as just the more golden honey and it just gets that real dark. That's when I like to eat the garlic, is when the honey gets that dark brown color.
And I have a question from my childhood. My grandfather used to go out, and I believe it was in the fall, and dig up the roots of the sassafras plant. Sassafras tea, which my mother was subjected to before I was. I have to say, by the way, it does taste great. I love sassafras tea, but I can no longer remember why we were drinking it. Do you have any ideas?
So like Smilax is also in the is a sarsaparilla-ish, and you use it to make root beer, but that's also used medicinally. Smilax is used for like prostate, kind of supporting your, hormonal, especially men's health, prostate. I'm not sure what kind of ally it is as far as your GI tract, but I just know it's mostly for men's health.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Another question was, I think probably no, not the answer, but it was from the very beginning. You were talking about using goldenrod. Were you, do you just use the flowers or just the leaves or both? Or does it depend on what you're concocting?
So I would say goldenrod is a whole plant again, and it's kind of like the ragweed one where I said in the video, there's so much of it. If you just want to use the flowers because that's where most of the energy is, and plus it makes your vinegar be this really beautiful golden color. Personally, I just use the flowers because it's so prolific. But if you're feeling, if you maybe have a small stand of solidago, use the whole plant. But I personally just use the flowers.
Okay. Yeah, I guess the goldenrod is also a plant that you can use for dyeing wool, also for the color.
Yeah. But be careful. Like, I don't know that I would ever wild craft that I would harvest, because goldenrod is a great phytoremediator. It is fabulous at pulling heavy metals out of the soil. And so for that reason, I wouldn't go out into an open field where I didn't know what was being, that I didn't know what was in that soil. I wouldn't use that goldenrod. I would grow it specifically just because it does uptake a lot of toxins.
I think that's good advice. And then we had a discussion on chat of what did you mean by woo woo?
So woo woo, because there's a lot of people that, you think of herbalists and you might think of long-haired hippie, alternative medicine kind of people that use crystals and talk to their cat, and so they might my husband just looked at me and went, "That was you."
That's funny.
But woo woo is just more thinking about, I'm gonna go talk to that plant, what I was talking about, how I asked permission from the plant, and it's more psychological than physiological. Woo woo is
Out there.
Hopefully I gave y'all lots of good resources, things to look for, other things to consider. If I'm happy for Michelle to share that presentation if you want.
I think what you've left me with is the idea of the depth and the complexity of using herbs. Appear to be, there's a ton of knowledge behind the selection and the preparation. So it's not that I'm going to go out in the backyard tomorrow and pick the Turk's cap and bring it in the house. But on the other hand, I might.
Yeah, do it. And especially when that Turk's cap goes to fruit, I think it's not a super sweet flavor, but it's an interesting sweet. It's not offensive.
It's interesting that you talked about the flavor of Turk's cap, because Suzanne Tuttle taught me last year that if you eat the seeds, they're delicious.
Oh, there's the seeds, huh?
Yeah.
I eat the whole thing. I eat the whole thing. But you might try, just it's kind of fun to cut up some of the leaves and put it in a glass of water, and just you'll see the slime that it produces. And that's how it's moistening your tissues and you know, just really supporting dry conditions.
Yeah, I definitely have to say, I appreciate Christina presenting for us tonight. I feel very lucky to work with her. We haven't been in the office much due to COVID, but whenever we are in the office together, we talk a lot about plants, and she's taught me a lot. As herbalism is a whole other study for me, that I don't have much knowledge on herbal treatments using native plants, so she's kind of like my mentor.
I think we all
Well,
really
sorry, everybody.
enjoyed this. So this was a fresh look at plants for most of us, I think.
Awesome. I'm sorry you couldn't hear me for that. We know I'll know next time I do a Zoom.
Yeah, I couldn't figure that out either, so I'm glad Susan and Christina figured it out. But yeah, sorry about the technical problems. That's life with Zoom online nowadays. So did anyone else have any other questions before we conclude? All right. Well, thank you all for joining. We appreciate you signing in and seeing our presenter, Christina Moon. Thank you all.
Thank
Christina.
you. Yep. Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.